Typical. I planned this video out for an entire year, and now I'm here, not sure what to say. 2021, the year the movies came back. And by movies, I mean more Netflix junk and Space Jam, A New Legacy. That was a rough night. In my ongoing, insatiable quest to fill my brain with as many new releases as possible in a given year, this time I managed to catch 103 new releases from the year 2021. Really mixed bag. It's a very back-heavy list. Everything from Nomadland to Willy's Wonderland. Hated both of them, by the way. We also had unwelcome little oddities like I Care a Lot, cinematic proof that Jared Leto should quit acting, and the most contractually obligated Marvel movie to date. Also, yes, in the end I did catch Godzilla vs. Kong. I don't know what I expected, but it's currently ranked lower than Muppets Haunted Mansion, The Last Duel, and The Princess Switch 3 Romancing the Star. My approach to movie fandom is gonna result in a lot of junk. And there's just no way around it. Some of that junk is in today's video. Let's speed round through my top 20 recommendations, favourite films of 2021. Judas and the Black Messiah. This was that one early release in the year. A good movie in those dark months of February will mean so much more to you. I was starved. Telling an investigation story around the Black Panthers, with two of my favourite ever actors, there was no chance I wasn't gonna love this. And whichever one of those actors you do consider the main star or the supporting lead, it was obvious Oscar nominations all round. Between this, Sorry to Bother You, Death Note, and Knives Out, I think Stanfield's getting typecast as a snivelling snitch. A snitch or a cop. And I am all here for it. I am starting to wonder whether I've seen every single movie about the civil rights movement in the 1960s. This is the life for Bo 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 Bo. This is the life for Bo 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 Bo. So, this year belongs to two people, and they both made Tick Tick Boom. This is the year of Lin-Manuel Miranda and Andrew Garfield. Get snubbed, baby! If you'd asked me this time last year about Lin-Manuel Miranda, I would have laughed. Why should I? But now I've got the eggy on my face. This is his directorial debut, an adaptation of the stage play Tick Tick Boom in the events that run up to the creation of the musical Rent. None of these things appeal to me, and certainly not Lin-Manuel, but I just need to stand down now because if this is what a Lin-Manuel Miranda directed movie looks like, I want 50 more of these things. Constantly visually impressive, a showy but slightly unhinged musical coming apart at the seams. The fact that Garfield can sing, like he could just sing this entire time, is positively unfair. It's a fun watch, it's a painful watch. It's a tough love tale about the cost of living the creative lifestyle and everything you will have to sacrifice time and time again to even stand a chance. Yeah, sorry, that shit wins me. Filled to the brim with theatre cameos and Easter eggs, it's a wonder they managed to make any movie. There's so many nod nod wink winks. But as someone with zero interest in the subject material, okay, the AIDS crisis. I'm sympathetic to the AIDS crisis, alright? This was a sleeper surprise hit. Showers in the kitchen, there might be some soap. Dishes in the sink, brush your teeth if you can cope. Toilets in the closet, you better hope there's a light bulb in there.
Not today!
Oh, and Vanessa Hudgens is in there too. Coming off the back of The Princess Switch 2, Switched Again, and her insensitive comments at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Josee the Tiger and the Fish is a beautiful animated fairy tale come rom-com, populated by terrible people. Disabled rep. As cliche as they come, but in all the best ways. A young wheelchair-bound teenager falls in love with her appointed carer, technically making this a enemies to lovers relationship, and a slightly unethical one at that. Don't worry, they go there. Thank you to director Kotaro Tamura for putting in those beautiful diving visuals, for wrapping in a big beautiful metaphor, for avoiding so many of the alarm bells that go off in my head when I hear anime rom-com tackling disability. Incredibly sweet movie that won't hesitate to dig deeper. I think Studio Bones, who haven't had a miss by the way, really understand the heart of this story, which is a sheltered disabled girl angry at the world around her and tired of her overdependence on other people because she's never had things any other way. Oh, she's a brat. She's a little fucking witch. But Jesus Christ, if you're not rooting for her by the end, you have a soul of stone, and you probably don't want to visit Mexico on a diving trip. Sundays. Look, I'm a simple man. I live for sundays. This is a life for boom, boom, boom. Fuck, it's still in my brain. We moved on, Sam. We moved on. Next film. Another tentpole expectation of the year was Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho. It's a lot more sober, a much more traditional film, with some of that Edgar Wright foreshadowing and flair, but this is one that's only as good as its final twist. And I think that Edgar Wright's off the ball a little bit in the foreshadowing department, as the script does legitimately cheats in misdirecting the audience. Certain characters should not be reacting the way they're reacting. A couple big leaps in logic. No doubt it is a clever film, if a convenient one, with transportative production design and seamless cinematography. Matt Smith and Anna Taylor-Joy look like they've always lived in this decade, and it's only down to the great casting that the end twist works at all. But the Dusty Springfield record, Catching Fire, being what brings about the finale, is the most genius small touch I've seen in a film for years and years. The idea that Deanna Rigg was brought to London, chasing her own inherited nostalgia of the place, creates a kind of cyclical tragedy that justifies the entire movie. And that's just one 5-second shot. Even Edgar Wright at his least interesting is probably the best standing director today. Oh, and what a final role for the late Diana Rigg. That's a send-off so few of us could ever attain. The Worst Person in the World chronicles 4 years in the life of Julie, a young French woman who navigates the troubled waters of her love life and struggles to find her career path, leading her to take a realistic look at who she really is. Oh damn, she's just like me for real. 2-hour French romantic comedy that spends its runtime kicking you in the teeth. A deeply intrusive and overly, painfully honest approach to sex, work, gender, relationships, and death. And without a single joke to its name, where do these films come off calling themselves rom-coms? Yeah, it's a painful portrait of 20-something indecision. What do you want from me? It's a very uncomfortable place to be, experienced by people who should know better and do think better, constantly thinking about the future whilst constantly failing it. Trust me, and you're not the worst person in the world. Spencer, shot like a horror film, experienced like a crime scene. This is a film that should have come with warnings before it premiered. Not that anybody saw it, of course. But a Princess Diana themed, nausea-inducing roller coaster is so much more intense than it has any right being. Also, let's take a prayer for all the boomers who had heart palpitations seeing a negative portrayal of the royals on screen. May they rest in peace. 'Cause this isn't your movie, bitch! Partially fictional, but also bringing in some more unusual sources, some different accounts on Princess Diana, from people who knew her, who knew Diana Spencer. I am not one of these people. I have no knowledge, no care, and no interest in royal activities. But I understand family politics. If the film was just a Queen Elizabeth horror drama, I don't think it'd work. It's that Kristen Stewart instead makes it a story about rediscovering Diana Spencer. Less so getting out than getting back to the person that she used to be. And I'm absolutely captivated. I wouldn't put it on for a second near my family. Can Kristen Stewart please stop getting involved with blood-sucking family cults? Kate, do you know how many John Wick-alikes there were this year? 3. Turns out that flat A to B but well shot and well lit revenge action thrillers are just in forever now. Look, if anybody was going to go on a murder spree through the streets of Japan, battling, making amends, and then fighting with the Yakuza, I'm just happy it's Mary Elizabeth Winstead. This is the most desperate film I've seen in a while, as our lead character is literally dying, hanging on to life within the first 20 minutes. It's got the same energy as End of Time. Just a blatantly, if slightly disposable, cool film. If you really squint your eyes, you can really do what I did and pretend that this was Black Widow. Evangelion! This is a tricky one. The finale to all the other finales of Neon Genesis Evangelion. This was a Japanese event that left the rest of the world spiraling I must have watched hours of content analysing this strange cacophony of a film, and I might be none the wiser, because of course there are 3 films here. You've got the quiet character piece, an epilogue saying goodbye to characters of the series, or what's left of them. The second part is the giant Gurren Lagann scale animation boundary breaking battle that serves as a climax to this trilogy of remake movies, which have come more and more apart as the films have gone on. I can't recommend them to anybody because I don't know what their intention or their audience is. I don't know why they exist. And then there's the ending of the ending, which in the most directly meta sense possible stages a finale within the other finales and says goodbye to all of them, kissing them on the head before putting them back to sleep. It's the anti-end of Evangelion. I'm so sorry if you have no fucking clue what I'm talking about. That film, which served as the second true ending to the series back in the 90s, is one of my favourite pieces of media ever. To me, Neon Genesis Evangelion should be depression arts. I'm not against Shinji Ikari finding his therapy ending, but it makes End of Evangelion, this profound, beautiful film, just feel like the neutral ending of a video game. Yeah, it's satisfying to see Shinji Ikari go face to face with his own father, metaphorically, via anime battle. It's a hat on a hat on a hat of a finale, but it's not unwelcome. These films don't have a story of their own, they are completely a text about other texts, refuting previous endings and making its own new one. It's a film telling us to put aside Evangelion, to go outside and touch grass, but the rest of the film is rewarding us, patting us on the head for enjoying the Evangelion things. I like a meta-narrative in my media, but this one, where he ships Shinji off with his new OC, personalityless woman who has no lines with Shinji apart from this. Shocker, this character was apparently based on the director's wife. And considering that she has no personality traits beyond big boobs, I don't know what that says about his relationship to his wife. It's a very apparent attempt to reclaim Evangelion. I love the character work, I love the staging, I love a text on a meta-text sandwich. But the problem isn't that he's making a movie for himself, it's that bland billionaire Hideaki Anno just isn't a captivating voice anymore, it seems. And his thesis for Shinji and the series that brought him his fame are things that the film just seems resentful about. Seems like the 90s properties are really just hanging around in creative purgatory. Matrix, Scream, Ava. These are films about franchises that don't know why they still exist. And it's not good, but it's interesting. I'll take what I like out of it, thank you, big boy. Enough postmodernism for you, you fucking otaku. 7-foot frame, rats along his back. Sorry, that film was going to be on the list. Like I said, it's Lin-Manuel month. But not only has the entire world been trying to ruin these songs for me, Frozen style, I also take issue with that very confused ending, where we all forgive Abuela for trying to sabotage the family and exile innocent relatives. No I was wrong moments, no redemption. We're all just expected to respect family hierarchies, because they've been here for longer. Fuck off. So instead, this spot goes to In the Heights.
Ready? Don't let me get a Milky Way. Yep. And let me also get a Milky Way. Yep. And the most important mile. Milky Way. Yep.
Shit, guys, I promise I'm not a musical theatre kid. This film fucking blew me away. Out of all the films on this list, this is definitely the one I spent the most time drunkenly raving about throughout the year. A lot of arguments have been had with friends over In the Heights. It's certainly a less neoliberal text than Hamilton. Just the right combination of genuine romance with social awareness. Don't expect me to say anything wanky like, it's almost like the neighborhood itself is a character. But the neighborhood itself really is kind of a character. I guess I really do just love every single character in this thing and understand their perspective, huh? We don't talk about Bruno as a bop, okay? Let's not get that twisted. But it has nothing on 96,000.
For real though.
Blackout. Carnaval de Barrio. It does that thing that only good musicals can do, where it combines the really cool with the really quite dorky. Look, it had to grow on me. There's just a lot of really good old-fashioned bops on this soundtrack. Sometimes there's nothing more to it than that, guys. Bo Burnham's Inside special got songs stuck in my head for a very different reason. Existential dread, mostly. Another meditative, psychologically charged film that I don't know what to do with. I didn't even particularly like this on my first watch. I think it's because this special, more than anything else Bo Burnham's ever put out, depends very much on the mood you come into it with. You're not getting a comedy special. You're not even really getting a movie. It's some strange combination of skits and visual album. Shot with a technical skill so proficient it will make me angry to talk about it. It's so good, I'm so jealous. I've watched a 2-hour video essay on the Jeff Bezos song alone. And yes, maybe that says more about me than it does the movie, but there's this profound, meaty underbelly to all of these surface level, humorous songs. Every single one of them about a kind of loneliness, with or without the inside lockdown of the title.
Am I going crazy? Would I even know? Am I right back where I started 14 years ago? Wanna guess the ending, if it ever does.
It's my worst nightmare, because all that performative noise online doesn't mean a thing in the face of how doomed we all are. You're Soho. We're all Soho. There's a couple strings re-emerging throughout all of the songs. It's a building ambiguity. You never know whether he's talking about the end of all things in a political sense, an environmental sense, or whether Bo Burnham is talking quite outright about suicide. And I think combining all of those is the most genius, tragic thing. Do you remember this is a comedy special where Bo Burnham sternly looks in a mirror and reminds you not to kill yourself halfway through. No joke, it's just that kind of programming. I do take issue with the way it's shot. When Bo goes for sincerity, it's just hokey. Kinda hard to believe some of this when Bo Burnham is the comedian with the mantra that everything is fake. That stand-up has an artifice and he is actively lying to you. And this doesn't fit in with that at all, in my opinion. So I feel uncomfortable, weird, when there's a sweary, walk-off set. Set? Frame. Except it's a set, isn't it? Bo bought this famous Hollywood apartment just for the special, and that does take away a bit.
Imagine there's no heaven.
I don't think Bo is the man to do sincerity. I think he's the comedy boy who cried wolf at this point. But fuck me, if it is a performance, it's pretty nasty to see parts of myself and people I know in there. Into the final stretch. Let's do some blockbusters. We didn't have too many of those last year. Let's enjoy them. Being in a cinema and hearing the bass melt my ears for James Bond. Oh, I've got some stuff to say about James Bond. I'm not a Bond fan. I think I like these 3 movies and wouldn't complain if the rest of them got junked one day. But No Time to Die really puts Daniel Craig's Bond through the ringer. It's a last chance saloon for this iteration of Bond. And it puts him in so many different James Bond scenarios. Classic cheesy ones.
I just showed someone your watch. Really blew their mind.
That's a Roger Moore level pun. It's a Bond gauntlet of old and new. And it turns out Daniel Craig can do all of them. This does feel like the natural conclusion to 50 years of Bond movies. It's just a shame that Spectre is such a prerequisite. I really love how the modern James Bond has tried to find its feet, reintegrate some past cheesiness, but it's No Time to Die that really finds a great balance. When it comes to sheer filmmaking this year, I think this is the number one because it's doing so many different things perfectly. The soundtrack's a bop. Allow me to download all of that. New ground for Bond is something I didn't ever think I'd be considering. But get a bit of fresh blood in there, and there is still life in this ancient Cold War era corpse. I was absolutely shocked when I found out that they let Daniel Craig be a normal human in this one, and talk like an actual person does. And it makes you realise just how much is missing from even the best Bond films for me. It's spotty, it's truncated, it's a real mishmash of tones. I just happen to think it does them all really well. Piss boring villain. Piss boring villain. But No Time to Die is a strong favourite from me. Spoilers for the ending. The entire send-off to Daniel Craig when he realises he won't get out of this alive. I swear to God, he does the exact same face, expression, and line delivery as David Tennant in The End of Time.
It's alright, Q. It's alright.
Also, Ana de Armas! It's a very polarizing film, but I like that we can all come together in the unanimous decision that we missed Ana de Armas' character throughout the whole thing. Just make the series hers. Just give her the series. Dune is the dream Hollywood adaptation, isn't it? Revering the source material, staying ever faithful whilst combining the old with the new, having your pick of Hollywood talents. This is another film that's the sum of its casting. As mesmerizing in the cinema as, 2001 A Space Odyssey, you won't realise how long this film is because you're stuck in a hypnotic trance throughout. I don't even mind that it's an enormously long first act without the second or third to accompany it, because the world is just that beautiful and believable. And if I may compliment Timothée Chalamet's agent, because boy, that's the best performance I've ever seen out of a main protagonist who doesn't emote, but it just works, making me feel deep immersion for a very cold sci-fi environment. I don't know how it quite does it. I really love the fact that whilst this film is as cutting edge as it comes, you can still tell the story itself is very old-fashioned. To the chosen one trope, to the racism, leaving that intact will make these new movies timeless. The definitive versions of this sci-fi tableau. And I'm just really excited to be in the cinema, a part of it. There's a huge budget sci-fi epic in cinemas that isn't brought to us by Disney. And you know what? This and Bond are holding their own. Respect to them. On that note, you know what fuck this. You know what I put above Bond and Dune? The Eternals. By Disney Marvel. I don't know, man, I'm sick in the head. Or maybe I'm just incredibly predictable. Seeing a new cast of godlike history walkers with superpowers and psychological complexes working against one another on a cosmic, never-before-seen scale with crazy lore. This sounds like it was written for me. I understand that it neutralizes some of the colourful, wacky weirdness of the original comics, but at the same time, I was never a fan of these characters in the comics. The more generic MCU brand here, I think has actually done them a bit of a service. What I see here is the Marvel playbook, the Marvel template being used to create a film that plays within those rules, but doesn't feel a thing like anything we've seen before from this company. Slower pacing, more meditative ideas and characters, as well as a proper standalone movie. I think it's a great starting platform, introducing a whole new pantheon of characters and then skipping straight to their civil war, and having all of these worldviews come into conflict with one another. Yes, it'd help if we didn't have to balance such a huge cast. Some of those motivations could definitely be more interesting or better explored. Did Nanjiani really have to walk out on the final battle? But I appreciate the focus on motivation regardless. The whole film is about discovering motivations. Big sci-fi revelations on this enormous scale. Revolting against the gods that made them. I really think it's next level. And this is coming from someone who does not like Chloe Zhao. The Oscar-winning Nomadland is rated my second worst film of the year. It's not me being a contrarian, I just hate the poor person cosplay of it all. So I find myself just as surprised as everyone else on this. I loved Eternals. This was a year where Marvel really pulled their thumb out. Apart from Black Widow and the second half of Shang-Chi, I think this might be Marvel's strongest year on the record. God, I wish I could stop putting them on these end-of-year lists. Summit of the Gods. Ethereal. I don't think I said a word across this entire movie, and God knows that's rare for me. A lot of bated breath and staring at the screen in awe. Just because it's animated, do not think you won't get a fear of heights from this movie. Just because it's a French animation based on a Japanese manga, do not think it won't give you an existential crisis. Why do some people do the things they do? It's not even the fact that because it's there. No, the real answer is so much vaguer and sadder. A lot of the people who do some of the most amazing things, some of the biggest achievements humanity has ever seen, they don't know why they're doing it either. They'll find out when they reach the summit. It's breathtaking, and when Disney pick up their obligatory Best Animation Oscar it'll be more of a crime than usual. And then you've got The Harder They Fall, and there's really not much to say about this because it's just a very cool film. A really well shot, cool movie. I don't need a profound reason for putting this on here. Idris Elba and Lakeith Stanfield are playing cowboy outlaws, and there's a stylized anime opening of a credit sequence. My reasons don't come more pure than that. If I'd sent this back 10 years into the past for myself, I'd probably have a new favourite movie. Well done to the cast for making me care about this pretty run-of-the-mill group of outlaws as much as I did, and congrats to Lakeith for finally escaping his brutal typecasting. Lakeith Stanfield as Cherokee Bill. What a year. I cannot wait to watch this film again. Malignant opens with this image. That's already the funniest thing I've seen in a movie this year, and my god, it sets the tone fast. This Scooby-Doo house contains the most fun I've had in a movie, the loudest reactions I've had to a movie this year. My god, I wish I could have seen this with the No Way Home crowd. And also 2021's greatest plot twist. It's not only an achievement in a cheeky nudge nudge wink wink B-horror movie way, because it's actually really competently made, at times gorgeous. To me, it more so feels like James Wan pulling in all of his experience on Hollywood films from across the years. Insidious to Saw, to Aquaman. There's DNA of Aquaman in here. And I don't think I've ever been more thankful to see those familiar James Wan stylings. Extremely campy fun. I choose to believe that the Malignant baby is in a long-term relationship with the Babadook. In some ways, I am a film critic. Number 4, mainstream. Going by the general opinion, I've already been dismissed from the film board as somebody not to take seriously. Luckily, that puts me in the exact same camp as Andrew Garfield. The exact kind of indie film that Garfield has been gravitating towards for the last 5 years, when he hasn't been on the side working with Mel Gibson and Martin Scorsese. Garfield's true home is in weird indie projects where he doesn't have to restrain himself at all. I feel like this entire film was birthed from his brain. It's hard to believe any of this was written. More so than Andrew Garfield accessed that primal part of his brain that wanted to climb on things and do weird shit. And they made the movie about that.
I shit. And I'll die like everybody else. You want me to shit, Ted? I'll shit for you, Ted.
No vanity.
You want to see the real...
Ever since Amazing Spider-Man 2, it seems that this guy can't contain his inherent weirdness anymore. Like, he can't hide it. So even in these big summer blockbusters, he will just start, like, rummaging around like a feral animal. And I love him for it. I still can't work out whether Mainstream is a supremely smart movie that is pretending to be dumb, or a very dumb movie that reminds me of the end of time. Hey, you guys know Doctor Who? Either way, something it's not interested in is subtlety. The entire movie is a scathing, sarcastic stab at influencers and internet audiences making nobodies famous. Andrew Garfield's character in this is called No One Special. I also feel like maybe Mainstream doesn't understand who its real targets are. Andrew Garfield wanting to play some loudmouth, batshit, but very funny influencer kind of detracts from the points that most social media influencers don't have any charisma, and actually have even less to say. But then at the same time, you'll see one of the Pauls. You'll see Jake Paul, or any number of cameos that they've assembled so they can be the butt of the joke. And in those moments, it may as well be a Sacha Baron Cohen sketch. And that's where Mainstream shows its fangs. Absolutely destroying the people who have agreed to be in your movie, but don't have the brain processing power to work out that they're the butt of the joke. I can see a lot of people thinking it's too irreverent to have any kind of thesis, an actual point to make, but I'd argue this moment here, this little ad-libbed line they got from Jake Paul, proves that the entire film nailed its mark.
It's out of context. People take seconds at a time and try to judge you for that.
Exactly.
Only that.
I didn't leak
Fake
that
news.
clip. It's all over the internet.
He thought he did something there. The fact that they kept that in tells you exactly what kind of movie we've got here. The film has a collective IQ of 10, and that does include the director, but she knows it, and this even bleeds into the editing of the thing. The film itself appears to glitch, unabashedly telling you that this film is shitposting. The film is shitposting you, but there's real darkness in there that taps into stuff I know I feel in my dark heart. If you're the kind of dickhead like me that will call Freddy Got Fingered Dadaist arts, you need to check out Mainstream right away. Number 3, No Way Home. The MCU Spider-Man movies are perfectly for me. I will always defend them, and have since they've come out. And I'm on the record as saying if this third film stuck the landing, we would have my favourite, most consistent movie trilogy ever made. Is this that? Do we have a perfect trilogy here? In terms of quality, maybe yes. In terms of consistency, not so. I don't think I really got the movie I was looking for, but goddamn if I wasn't drawn into the Spider-Man Endgame, just like everyone else, because it's really well measured, balancing a lot of characters, balancing a lot of tones and a lot of plot points. It's another massive crossover that you can split into 3 distinct parts. But I think it does its job much better than Endgame did, the film that it's clearly riffing off of. Finally coming full circle on this establishing character arc, and taking Tom Holland's Spider-Man into more familiar territory. It feels good. I'll never understand the Iron Boy Jr. complaints. The entire point of Homecoming is that he turns down Tony Stark's internship. He realizes it's grooming and it's not for him. And then he does the exact same in Far From Home. No Way Home feels different because it feels like it's directly addressing that exact kind of toxic fan that has been throwing their toys out of the pram for all these years. It's their movie. Here you go. It helps that it's all very good, but the entire thing reeks of screen testing. It felt like the film was audience measured hell and back. And after the fourth wall's been completely blown out by 90s franchises from The Matrix to Scream to Spider-Man, I'm kind of... just give me the Spider-Man movie, please. With Ned and Flash and MJ. That's the kind of fan I am, and it gets very much sidelined. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't amped up with the pitch-perfect way they reintroduced Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. I think it was so important and perfectly played that they gave all that time to Andrew Garfield. Even though, yes, I'm horrifically biased. He was the absolute show stealer of this movie, in a movie that contained, Jamie Foxx, Willem Dafoe, Michael Giacchino, who delivers a really strange soundtrack that sounds a bit like Avatar? Benedict Cumberbatch, Alfred Molina, and Tobey fucking Maguire. And all the best bits are still his. And it touches on this absolute pragmatist, optimist, beautiful Spider-Man sentiment of how can you be a good person in the face of a never-ending multiverse? That was the moment I fell in love with this movie. Marvel films might be very anti-utilitarianism, but this is next level, giving Spider-Man a more hopeful, unbridled outlook on heroism by using the existing, and at this point kinda tired, premise of the multiverse. Really good stuff. It's so seamless, it's so organic, it's so human. Rehabilitating the villains is where all this movie's best ideas are, so it disappointed me a little bit that it didn't go much deeper than stabbing them with tech syringes. But on the other hand, I do realise that these are comic book villains, and tech villains at that.
Hey, Peter Parker, remember me? I'm Flint Marko, Sandman from Spider-Man 3.
The fact that every Spider-Man movie is equally represented, and each of these villains given their own unique motivation, it goes miles for me. It's a film that's trying so hard for you to like it, and maybe it's a bit too Twitter-minded, shall we say, in the process, but I'm amazing they stuck to the landing to the degree that they did. Bring on 6 more Tom Holland movies. Number 2. There's not actually that much to say about Promising Young Woman because it makes its own case as a film entirely by itself. It's a very angry, neutrally charged, heartbreaking film that's only as good as its main lead, Carey Mulligan. For a film that has the message of rape culture being omnipresent and unavoidable, even in places you don't think, a lot of this movie's biggest fans are men. The female response to this is mostly wanting more catharsis, wishing that Cassie got revenge rather than martyrdom. And fair, that's the line promising young woman wants to walk, never veering too far from the defeatism of it all. There's a long trend of female-led revenge movies that are either helpless post-death revenges, or a woman who needs to learn to move on or accept that revenge is useless and futile. Or sometimes they're just plain evil. But I don't think this film is one of them. I think it falls into its end position. Not because the female perspective has to be more mature than this, has to show restraints, but because it's the only likely ending to this story. And that's where it lands its punches. Oh yeah, Keanu Reeves will be held to account for shooting 1,000 bad guys, and he will pay the consequences. But he's still got to kill the 1,000 bad guys whilst keeping the audience's sympathies. Cassie doesn't kill a single person, and she's getting Joker comparisons. In the reception alone, this film is a self-fulfilling prophecy, for fuck's sake. Promising Young Woman shows systematic rape culture as the merciless uphill battle that it is. And it is vindicating. Even down to the casting of Burnham, who's a special kind of white guy.
I'm a special kind of white guy.
Kind of dweeby, self-deprecating, socially aware, unthreatening boy who's also intimidatingly tall and has the frame that shows he would have been a jock. I'm not this film's audience or target, but I struggle to think of a better version of this movie. And number one, I don't have anything to say about this movie. So here's a little montage I made. And maybe through the combination of images and sound, you can see what I love in this beautiful animated movie.
Quanta fretta, ma dove corri? Dove vai? Se ci ascolti per un momento capirai. Lui è il gatto ed io la volpe, stiamo in società, di noi ti puoi fidare.
Pixar are back on form, and I am just incredibly biased about movies about fish kids, aren't I? That's a weird pattern. On to 2022.